All right, strap yourselves in because today we're going deep on one of history's biggest unsolved mysteries,
Yeah.
the JFK assassination.
Oh, wow.
This event, it's become a cultural phenomenon, right? I mean, everyone's got a theory, a book they swear by, a documentary
Right.
that cracks the code.
It's everywhere you turn, right? And
Yeah.
and it's not hard to see why, right?
Yeah.
You have this young, charismatic leader cut down in his prime, a public spectacle that's just burned into our collective memory.
Yeah.
And enough loose ends and, unanswered questions and intrigue to keep conspiracy theorists busy for, I don't know, probably centuries at this point.
At least decades, yeah, for sure.
At least.
So we're tackling the question head on, right? Did Lee Harvey Oswald really act alone, or was there something more to the story?
The million-dollar question.
Yeah, we're going deep today, folks. Digging
Yeah.
into reports, witness accounts, ballistics, all of it.
The whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. We're not here to endorse any particular theory, right?
Yeah.
We're not coming at this with an agenda.
Right.
Instead, we're going to explore the key arguments and the evidence on both sides of this debate.
Okay.
We'll see what holds up under scrutiny, what raises eyebrows,
All right.
or what leaves us just scratching our heads.
Yeah. So let's rewind to November 22nd, 1963.
Okay.
Dallas, Texas. President Kennedy's in a motorcade, an open-top motorcade, waving to the crowds, and then shots ring out, chaos erupts, and the world changes forever, you know?
Yeah, and I think, adding to this,
Yeah.
this already very layered event
Right.
is that Governor John Connally, riding with President Kennedy,
Right.
was also wounded in the shooting.
Yeah.
And so that's a really key detail when you start to think about, where did the bullets come from?
Right.
How did they travel?
And how many were there? All of that, yeah.
Exactly.
So let's start by talking about the Warren Commission report, which is the official explanation, right? And they concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, firing 3 shots from the Texas School Book Depository.
Right. And the Warren Commission wasn't just some, kind of slapdash,
Yeah.
report.
Great.
They interviewed hundreds of witnesses.
Right.
They analyzed tons of evidence.
Yeah.
And ultimately, they concluded that one of Oswald's shots missed. One hit both President Kennedy and Governor Connally.
Oh, okay.
And that's where we get the infamous magic bullet theory.
Right.
And then, tragically, the final shot was the fatal one.
The magic bullet always seemed like a bit of a stretch, I gotta say.
Right.
That's the one that, supposedly zigzagged through both men, right?
It is.
I mean, even for someone who isn't deep down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole,
Sure.
it's hard to imagine that's possible.
I mean, I definitely understand the skepticism, but, this is probably one of the most controversial aspects of the whole debate. But it has been defended by, some ballistic experts.
Okay.
And they argue that it is possible,
Okay.
given the angles,
Yeah.
the type of bullet, and the physics.
So it could happen.
Potentially.
Okay.
But the skepticism, I think, is totally understandable, right?
Right. And I think that skepticism leads to a lot of the doubt around the Warren report, right? If that part is far-fetched,
Sure.
then what else could they have missed?
Yeah, I mean, and there have been valid criticisms of the Warren report. Some argue that it was rushed, that certain evidence wasn't fully considered, and that there are inconsistencies in some of the witness testimonies.
Right.
So all of that together has led some people to believe that maybe the commission missed something crucial.
Okay.
Or, even intentionally steered away from certain conclusions.
All right. So let's talk about Lee Harvey Oswald himself.
Okay.
Was he this lone wolf driven by ideology like the Warren report suggests?
Yeah.
Or was he a patsy, right, caught up in something way bigger?
Right.
His background is interesting, to say the least, right? I mean, he defected to the Soviet Union. He had these pro-Castro sympathies.
Yes.
Even some erratic behavior that was reported.
Yeah, not your typical,
Yeah, not your average guy next door.
not at all.
Right, and the evidence pointing to Oswald is pretty substantial, right? I mean, he bought the rifle. Witnesses put him in the Texas School Book Depository at the time. He fled right after.
That's a very compelling case.
Yeah.
On the surface, but it's not airtight.
Right, and then, of course, you have the Jack Ruby factor, right? 2 days after the assassination, Oswald's being transferred to police custody, and he's shot and killed by Ruby, this Dallas nightclub owner.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about adding fuel to the conspiracy fire.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, right.
I mean, what was going on there? Did Ruby act alone, or was he silencing Oswald to protect someone?
It really throws a wrench in the whole lone gunman theory for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Was it a random act? Was it deliberate? Was he trying to silence Oswald to keep him from talking? What about Ruby's mob ties? Some have theorized that,
Yeah.
His nightclub was kind of a hangout spot
Yeah.
for organized crime.
So we're talking mafia involvement in the president's assassination.
Yeah.
Okay, things are getting interesting.
That's one of those things that you just can't ignore, right?
Right.
Like, I mean,
Right.
there are some threads to follow there.
Yeah. Well, what's their motive?
Right. Well, so the theory is that, the mob was angry with Robert Kennedy.
JFK's brother?
Right,
Oh.
exactly. For his crackdown on organized crime.
Oh, okay.
They saw JFK as an obstacle
Okay.
and thought, eliminating him would send a pretty strong message.
Okay, so we've got Oswald, we've got this magic bullet, we've got Jack Ruby and the mob.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else we should add to our lineup here?
Well, all those witnesses that claim to have heard shots coming from the grassy knoll,
Oh,
not just the book depository, that's where things start to get a little crazy.
yeah, the grassy knoll. I mean, it's like synonymous with the JFK conspiracy theories.
Yeah, multiple shooters,
Yeah.
Secret Service conspiracies, all of that.
I mean, some people claim to have seen smoke and movement over there, right?
Absolutely.
Suggesting there was a second shooter.
Right.
And those witness accounts,
Oh, yeah.
coupled with the doubts about the magic bullet, Oswald's motives, it all led to a second official investigation in the 1970s.
Right. The House Select Committee on Assassinations.
Wow.
And what's interesting is they concluded that there was a high probability of a conspiracy.
Okay.
And pointed specifically to some audio evidence.
Okay.
A recording known as the dictabelt
Right.
that seemed to suggest more than 3 shots were fired.
So a second government investigation actually contradicted the first?
Yeah. But the dictabelt recording,
Yeah.
which initially seemed like, a smoking gun,
Yeah.
has since been largely discredited
Oh, wow.
by audio experts.
Okay.
They argue that the sounds don't match up with the timing or the location
Okay.
and were probably caused by something else entirely.
So another twist in the JFK saga.
Right. It feels like every time we get close,
Yeah.
another layer of mystery is revealed.
It's like 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
Exactly. And I think that's why the JFK assassination continues to just captivate our imagination, right? It's like this puzzle box with endless layers,
Right.
where every single piece of evidence
Yeah.
can be interpreted in multiple ways.
Right. And it's not just history.
No.
I mean, this case, it speaks to something deeper, right?
Right.
Our need to understand, distrust of authority, fascination with the unknown.
Totally. It's
Yeah.
at the heart of, what makes us human, I think.
Yeah, our curiosity, our need to make sense of the world around us,
Exactly.
even when it doesn't make sense.
Especially when it doesn't make sense. It's easy to get lost down these rabbit holes, right?
Oh, yeah.
With all the conspiracy theories.
Right.
But we have to remember that the JFK assassination, this sent shockwaves through the country, right? I mean, it shattered this sense of innocence.
Yeah.
And it sowed seeds of distrust in the government.
Absolutely. It's like the nation lost its naivete that day. Right. The idea that something so unthinkable could happen, broad daylight, to this leader who embodied hope for so many.
Yeah.
I mean, it shook people to their core.
It did. And that sense of shock and betrayal,
Yeah.
I think that's a big reason why these conspiracy theories took root so strongly.
Right. People were desperate for answers that went beyond the official story.
Right. Narrative that just didn't sit right with many.
Felt incomplete. Yeah.
Exactly.
So we've explored some of the arguments against the lone gunman theory, but what about the stuff that supports the Warren Commission's findings? I mean, didn't they have a pretty solid case against Oswald?
They did. They presented a lot of evidence.
Right.
I mean, remember, they weren't just relying on, shaky eyewitness accounts.
Right.
They traced the purchase of the rifle back to Oswald.
Okay.
They found his fingerprints on the weapon in the sniper's nest.
Okay.
And they established a timeline that placed him at the scene.
Okay, yeah, and wasn't there a bunch of ballistic evidence too?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Forensic experts, they meticulously analyzed the bullets and fragments from the scene, as well as the rifle from the book depository. And their findings were that all the shots fired that day could be traced back to that single weapon.
Oswald's rifle.
So
if you go by that, that rules out a second shooter.
Right. Logically, yes. No grassy knoll, no mysterious figures.
Just Oswald.
But those who believe in the conspiracy, they argue that even the ballistics evidence might not be as airtight as it seems.
Okay.
Some suggest the evidence was tampered with or there were errors in the analysis.
Okay.
They point to, discrepancies in some witness testimonies.
Yeah.
And some even suggest that evidence could have been planted.
Wow. So it's almost like, you pick your own adventure, right? Where every piece of evidence,
Right.
you can interpret it in different ways, depending on what you already believe.
It's a great way to put it, yeah. Unfortunately, the JFK assassination doesn't give us a neat and tidy conclusion.
Yeah.
It's shrouded in ambiguity.
Right.
Every piece of evidence seems to bring up more questions than answers.
It's enough to make your head spin, man.
It really is.
So where does that leave us? I mean, how do we, as individuals, try to make sense of all this conflicting information?
Right.
Do we pick a side and stick with it, or is there a better way to approach it?
I think the key is to be aware of our own biases.
Right.
We all come to this case with preconceived notions, whether we realize it or not.
Right.
So it's essential to acknowledge those biases.
Okay.
To look at the evidence from different angles.
Right.
And to admit that maybe we don't have all the answers.
Right, but that's easier said than done, though, right? I mean,
no, for sure.
This case is a rabbit hole, man, of information and speculation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tempting to just get caught up in it all.
Right.
And jump to a conclusion.
But we can't forget, at the heart of this, is this really profound human tragedy, right?
Right.
A president was killed.
Right.
A family was devastated, and a nation was left reeling.
Yeah.
So
that's a powerful reminder. It's easy to lose sight of the human cost.
It is.
When you're so far down that road of conspiracy theories and evidence.
Yeah. And that's why, even though we may never have all the answers, it's so important to keep asking questions.
Right.
Keep searching for the truth.
Yeah.
And to honor the memory of those who were lost that day.
Okay, so we've talked about the official narrative, the major conspiracy theories, the challenges of navigating this sea of information.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
I think it's time to shift our focus a bit.
Okay.
From the "did Oswald act alone" question to a broader, more impactful question.
Okay.
Which is, why does the JFK assassination still matter today?
Okay.
What are the lasting implications?
Right.
How do they continue to shape our world?
Yeah, that's a great point. This isn't just a historical curiosity, right?
No.
It's a lens to understand the forces that shape our society,
right?
Politics, our perceptions of truth and power.
Exactly. The JFK assassination has become this cultural touchstone, right? It's a symbol of lost innocence,
right? Government
secrecy, the allure of these conspiracy theories.
It really speaks to our deepest fears and anxieties about the world.
It does.
And those are as relevant today as they were back in 1963.
Absolutely.
It raises questions about the nature of truth itself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in this age of information overload, how do we know what to believe? Who do we trust? How do we separate fact from fiction, especially when it comes to events like this?
Those are questions that each of us has to grapple with, not just with this case, but in every part of our lives.
Yeah.
We live in a world where we're constantly bombarded with information.
Right.
Narratives get spun to serve agendas, and it can feel like the truth is just constantly shifting under our feet.
Yeah, it's overwhelming, to say the least.
It really is. But you're right. This isn't just about JFK.
Right.
It's about how do we navigate a world saturated with information, misinformation, disinformation, all of it.
Right.
And the JFK assassination provides, I think, a very powerful case study.
Yeah.
In how information and evidence and these narratives, how they're constructed and how they're spread. And it shows how easily truth can be distorted.
Yeah.
And how narratives can be manipulated to fit certain agendas.
Right.
And how this, quest for answers can sometimes lead us down these rabbit holes.
Of speculations.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. It's a cautionary tale, but it's also a reminder that we have the power to think critically.
Right.
To question what we're told. Yeah. Seek out evidence
for sure
that supports or challenges our beliefs.
Absolutely. We don't have to accept any single narrative as the definitive truth, right? We can be critical consumers of information.
Yeah.
And we can use that knowledge to make informed decisions.
Okay, so we've explored the assassination, the conspiracy theories, and the broader implications of this event for how we think about truth and information.
Right.
But I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
Oh, yeah. There's always more to uncover, more layers to peel back.
Right. But for now, let's give our listeners some time to digest all this.
Yeah.
And come to their own conclusions.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. It's been a pretty intense deep dive.
It has.
I think we've given everyone a lot to chew on. But before we wrap up this part,
okay,
is there anything else, any final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
There is. If we entertain the possibility that Oswald wasn't alone,
Right.
that there were other forces at play,
Yeah.
I think the most crucial question we can ask is, who benefited most from his death?
Okay.
Who had the most to gain from removing him from power?
That's a chilling question. It takes us beyond speculation, right? And into, like, the heart of power dynamics and political motivations and the potential consequences of challenging the status quo.
And that's a conversation that goes way beyond the JFK assassination.
Right.
It's a conversation we need to be having today as we navigate this world where truth is often contested.
Yeah.
Power is concentrated, and the stakes are, incredibly high.
It's crazy how the JFK assassination still sparks debate,
Yeah.
all this time later, all this speculation.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It really is. It's like everyone just projects their own, beliefs onto it.
Their own interpretation.
Yeah, searching for those answers that, resonate with how they see the world.
Right.
And what I find so fascinating is how this event has really become the focal point
Right.
for the whole, conspiracy theory phenomenon.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it laid the groundwork for how we deal with these unexplained or traumatic incidents.
Yeah, so the JFK assassination, it wasn't just a tragic moment in history.
Right.
It actually,
I think it did.
it reshaped the way we think about power, secrecy, all these unseen forces.
Right. It cracked open this Pandora's box of doubt and suspicion. Right. And that's influenced everything, I think.
Right.
From politics to, the stories we tell in movies and books.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. How many thrillers or documentaries have you seen that are basically,
inspired by
riffing on the JFK assassination?
Right. It's like a cultural touchstone, this obsession almost,
It is. It's like we're drawn to the mystery.
Yeah.
The unanswered questions, this idea that,
there's more to the story.
there's something else going on.
Right, but what is it about these conspiracy theories? What makes them so appealing, right? I mean, why do we gravitate toward them, even when they seem far-fetched?
I think there's a lot of psychological factors at play here,
Okay.
One of the most basic is just this human need for order,
Right.
for meaning. And when something like the JFK assassination happens, it just throws everything into chaos,
It throws our understanding of the world.
Exactly. And these conspiracy theories,
Yeah.
they offer this way
Okay.
to restore a sense of order, even if it's based on this, flawed or unproven narrative.
It's a way to make sense of the unthinkable.
It is. It's a way to cope with trauma,
Yeah, like to find a reason, even if it's made up,
Totally
for
accurate.
why something so awful happened.
Exactly. It gives us this sense of control when we feel powerless.
Okay.
And, they can also be
Yeah.
a way of expressing this distrust in authority. Right.
Yeah.
After the assassination,
Yeah.
a lot of people felt betrayed by the government.
Right.
This official narrative
Yeah.
that seemed to dismiss evidence that didn't fit,
Right. The lone gunman theory.
And so embracing a conspiracy theory
Yeah.
becomes this way of saying, I'm not buying it,
Right.
I think there's more to the story, and I'm going to find it.
Right. Like a rebellion, almost.
Exactly.
A rejection of the official story, right?
Yeah.
For this, like, hidden truth that only some people know about.
Like you're in the know.
Yeah, right?
You have this knowledge that most people don't.
Yeah. And it makes you feel special in a way.
Totally. It feeds into this desire to be special, to understand how the world really works,
Right. And it's this puzzle, right?
Oh, yeah.
That you're trying to solve.
Absolutely. A lot of these theories, they weave these really intricate webs of connections, agendas, plots that are just, intellectually stimulating.
Yeah.
And people get drawn into that.
Yeah, it's like solving a mystery, but with much higher stakes.
Exactly.
Right, but we got to be careful. Right, because while some of these theories might be harmless, they can have some real-world consequences.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
They kind of spread misinformation.
Right, incite violence, erode trust in important institutions.
Exactly.
Right, and that's a crucial point.
Yeah.
We have to be careful consumers of information.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to something like this.
Especially with something this emotionally charged.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in it.
It is.
But we can't let that overshadow, our responsibility to think critically, evaluate the evidence.
Yeah.
Be mindful of the harm that spreading, misinformation can cause.
Couldn't agree more. We have to be good stewards
right.
of information. promote accurate sources.
Yeah.
And just engage in respectful dialogue.
Yeah.
Even when, we don't see eye to eye.
Right. Absolutely. So as we wrap up our deep dive here,
Okay.
the JFK assassination, the world of conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
I think more than anything, cultivate this healthy skepticism.
Okay.
Question what you read,
Yeah.
what you hear, what you see.
Okay.
Don't accept things blindly.
Right.
But also, don't immediately dismiss anything that, challenges what you think.
Okay.
Be curious, be open-minded.
Yeah.
But above all, be discerning.
That's great advice. And I think that applies to so much more
For sure.
than just conspiracy theories, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We live in this complex world.
Yeah.
And we have to navigate it with, wisdom, curiosity, and this commitment to truth, wherever it may lead us.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It has.
I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot.
Yeah.
It's incredible how one event, all these years later, can spark so much debate and reflection.
It speaks to the power of history.
Yeah.
The mysteries of, how our minds work.
Yeah.
And just that need to understand.
Our desire to understand, right?
What shapes our world.
And who knows, maybe this will inspire our listeners to go on their own journeys,
I hope so.
To dig deeper into the mysteries that fascinate them, to question the narratives they've been given.
And to find their own truths.
Yeah, to uncover their own truth.
The search for understanding is a lifelong journey.
It is.
And the best discoveries are the ones we make ourselves.
Exactly. So keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep the conversation going.
Absolutely.